Hey guys, welcome to PureHeart, and this is Steven, your host. And the Oscars have caught my attention because they seem to be making more rules for the next Oscars, guys. So let's get started and see what these rules are, because they could determine whether or not Christians can even rely on Hollywood to, I guess, affirm whether or not their movies are actually good, because there's some diversity hire rules that may negate the efforts of Christian filmmakers hiring the best people for the job. Now, we all know that if Christians don't hire the best people for the job they can get, and they're focusing on specific criteria of a sex, race, this and that, it'll be very difficult for business in general. But it will also be difficult for them to be creative. And instead of being creative, they're thinking about how they can be qualified for the Oscars. Now, I don't think Christians need to go to the Oscars at all. Most Christian movies are not at the Oscars, all right? But movies that are not faith-based per se, but made by Christians to inspire people to bring them towards God and some type of message, I think that is what's important. And this could affect it because the Oscars ratings have been going down a lot, guys. So it may not even be that much of a benefit to go there, but there are some Christians who may get the opportunity. The Oscars gives people opportunities to really show off their work to big directors, big producers. Maybe some are Christian, maybe some are not. But it's to inspire not only the rest of the world, but Hollywood itself. But if Hollywood is making things hard, we have to make our own Oscars or something. I don't know. Figure it out. So let's get to the article right now. So the Oscars have become more and more, as we say in the more on the right, woke. And I don't think it's the right term per se. I think it's just a term to really clarify that they're not really serious about these rules. They don't actually care about diversity. They just care about dividing. All right. And as a Christian, I have to look at this and see it for what it is. But unfortunately, there's a lot of Christians who are also fake and pretend that they are on their side at times when it comes to, oh, I care about this and that because I'm a Christian. That's just not how it works. Christians shouldn't just do things because it makes them look good. We should do things because it brings excellence and gives glory to God. We should never recreate businesses, whatever. And Christians aren't allowed to be nice anymore, right? We tried that in the modern times. If Christians were nice back in the Bible days, guys, we'd be in a lot of trouble, right? They're trying to kill Christians in the New Testament. So yes, the anti-woke critics. This is from Forbes, right? So this is not a Christian, or even this is more of a maybe center to left around, right? So anti-woke critics target the Oscars, but here's what the Academy's new diversity rules actually require. I know they require because I've read them before. And let's see what they actually require. All right, they're going to talk about all the people who are critics of the new rules. All right. So films must be standard B. There's a standard. So there's different standards, right? So standard B, films must meet one of three criteria: at least two creative leaders or department heads, including casting directors, cinematographers, composers, and more, must be from an underrepresented group, meaning whatever that even means. Because underrepresented groups can mean anything from any race, really, right? There's black, There's Latina. I don't think they're underrepresented anymore. And there's people from different countries who don't even speak English, or they speak English but they're from like a country that nobody knows about, and they have a very specific race. They may be slightly Eastern European, or maybe they may be something else. Are they represented, right? So it depends on like what are you talking about? The disabled, people with one arm. Are you talking about someone who was sexually assaulted as a kid and who has post-traumatic stress? Like, who are these unrepresented groups? Are you talking about specifically race? Are you talking about whether or not they have the mental capacity to go through life normally? Do they have PTSD from the military? Were they in a war, military, or maybe Vietnam vets, things like that. So we all know they're older now, the Vietnam vets, but are they a group from a specific area? We don't know. At least 6 crew or technical positions must be from an underrepresented groups, or at least 30% of the crew must be from an underrepresented group. Standard C, the film's production, distribution, or financing companies offer paid internship or apprenticeship and training opportunities for people from underrepresented groups. Listen, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you're in America, you can get an internship, all right? But it's going to take a lot harder work. There's internships that I almost went to and I didn't go because it wasn't for me. But like in editing, I think there's an internship for that. I didn't want to get into editing, so I didn't see the need. But if it was like random productions or just being on the crew, maybe I would have done it because I just want to kind of see where the movie scene is. Help other people with films. That's a form of internship. But if they're mostly indie films, and random people, it's harder to get into actual Hollywood. If you want to get in Hollywood, you have to actually be in Hollywood and try to network and stuff like that if you want to do that. But and if you're a Christian and you really want to influence the world by actually entering Hollywood, then that's fine. And it will definitely be easier to intern, especially from college, if you can. So Standard B, the film studio must have multiple senior executives from underrepresented groups on its marketing, publicity, or distribution team. Why the distribution team? Makes no sense. The Academy announced these policies 5 years after the Oscars So White boycott, in which activities criticized the Oscars for nominating all white actors at the 2015 ceremony. Now, I remember, I don't know if that was the one where, was that the one with 12 Years a Slave? What's his name didn't win? It could have been, because I remember that was a big deal. Even I agreed that he should have won, that specific actor. I can't think of his name right now. Should have won the 12 Years a Slave movie. But because I just thought it was unfair, and the black lady won Best Actress. I'm like, then why didn't he win Best Actor? Because he's obviously equally, if not better, actor. We all know he's a good actor. But Matthew McConaughey won instead from his film about him being a drug addict or something like that. And I get it. Maybe it was good acting, right? Maybe Matthew McConaughey never won an Oscar before. Maybe he just was waiting for a long time. They just gave it to him. But I don't believe for a second that the Oscars aren't already political in some way. They kind of pick and choose who they want depending on whatever fake things they say about why they chose the person. They can say whatever they want, but I'm not going to believe that it was never some level of bias, right? So Tommy Lauren called the diversity requirements a snake eating its own tail, suggesting that whining which white Hollywood liberals are going to be out of work as these rules take effect. Some of the social media outrage was sparked because of viral misinformation. Popular right-wing Twitter account In Wokeness tweeted a screenshot of just Standard A, which has been retweeted thousands of viewed millions of times, and falsely stated that films must meet the on-screen diversity requirement to be eligible. Oscar-winning Richard something Dreyfuss blasted requirement to be eligible. Oscar-winning Richard. Oh, okay, I read that. No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is, he said. New York Post quoted an anonymous director who called the requirements ridiculous, stating, I'm for diversity, but to make you cast certain types of people if you want to get nominated, that makes the whole process contrived. Some, including the New York Post, speculated that films that like The Godfather would not win Best Picture today, with one social media user suggesting it is too white and too male. Right? Yeah, of course, back in those days, you had more white people, and that's just the way, because white people ruled America, and they're the majority at the time. In LA, the Latinos are the majority now. We are overrepresented with Latinos. And blacks are still a much lesser minority. And that's just the way it is, right? But if you want an international market in Hollywood, the international market, I don't think they care that much about diversity. If they see a black guy or a white guy or a Chinese guy, or if they're good looking and they can act well, nobody cares at the end of the day. Maybe in China they may not like black people in China, but other than that, most countries wouldn't care either way, right? It's just that America is so obsessed with race, it's causing Christian filmmakers to have to follow new rules, and we're gonna have to make our own Oscars, guys. We have to call it something. And I know we have some already, probably. Obviously, we do on some level, but we have to make it bigger, right? We have to make our movies so good that we are going to be the new Hollywood. That's my point. And the reason why this channel talks about the film industry a lot is because that's kind of what I've surrounded myself with a good part of my life since college, and I've always been kind of a filmmaker. I've always filmed my skateboarding. I've always been recording myself doing something crazy. I'm just kidding. So we need to really think about, do we need the Oscars or not? That's the real question. Now they're saying that the so-called white right wingers don't really are getting misinformation. No, it was one part of the rules, obviously, and that one part, as if it wasn't a part, was important to them. So they say, "Oh, well, you didn't read everything. I read all of your requirements, Oscars," and it's the same thing. It's basically the film, like for example, C, the film's production, distribution, or financing companies offer paid internships or What do you mean offer? What does that even mean? Okay, so if you offer a paid internship, wouldn't that be for anyone, including minorities? Why would any internship not take minorities anyway? It doesn't make any sense. This standard C is not even needed, because that would be obvious. Like, you don't have to tell a company who to hire, who not to hire. If they can do the job, if they get picked, they get picked, right? We wouldn't know whether or not it was racially motivated or not, whether or not they got hired. There's no way to know that, right? There's times when I've looked for jobs, and I didn't know whether or not I was hired or wasn't hired because of my race. There's no way to know that. This is why I never liked the idea of affirmative action, which makes minorities wonder whether or not they actually deserve to be there or not. We want the best people for the job, and if you get hired, we want to know that I want you to know that you're the best person for the job, at least for me, right? And sometimes it is about race. If I need a specific race to represent a specific story or concept, right? So even that would be considered racist, right? If you hire, you say, okay, I want to hire a diversity hire, and I hire a bunch of Asians because, it's based in Japan. Is that racist? Right? And I want to make a lot of Christians like biblically based stories in with Asians as well. I want actually the Pure Heart one. I would love to have a huge community of Asians here too. So because the goal for Pure Heart is to have all races, all nationalities from all around the world join. I may be black, but it doesn't mean I only want to work with black people. That's silly. That would be racist, right? So when I understand, I'm not talking about the black people who only work with black people now, and they just happen to like want a black production company for some reason, right? I've seen them around the film industry, and that's fine if they want to do that. If they want to be only like black production, black kings and queens, fine. That's fine by me. But I never wanted that for myself because since 15 years ago, I've always wanted to work with different types of races. I don't want to be stuck with just one community because I won't be able to learn anything about culture outside of the black community. And I live in America, guys. There's so many people here. There's no reason to like segregate yourself, right? We're already way past that, guys. The only segregation that I would have recommended back in the day was to keep some whatever version that was of Black Wall Street when the black people had their own stuff, but they were also a different breed. They weren't ghetto, they weren't this and they weren't that. They had their own families. They were just like the white people in that way. They wanted to do better, but a certain party made sure that didn't happen. And they integrated too early. But those are two different things. That's already passed. So now, as individual families or individual people, we have to, especially as Christians, be responsible for our own success so we can be a witness to God, the witness to Jesus, right? So that's the goal of every single race. The Asians, I think, are good, doing well. They're fine. The Asians don't need Hollywood, guys. The Asians can literally make their own Hollywood. They already have it in Korea and Japan. They don't need American media. They just need affirmation from Americans, which is why certain movies were made, and they did a good job. They won the award. I think they deserved it. I saw the movie, the Asian movie that won the award for what it was. I'm not going to say, oh, this is a terrible movie because I don't like it as a Christian. No, I'm going to say, based on the writing, based on the concept, whether or not I like the concept, I'm going to say the movie was well done. And that's how we should approach our movies. So, good movie first. We can worry about whether it's biblically based or not later, because people are not going to want to see a movie that's crappy, right? People are so concerned about, okay, this is biblically based. No, well, why don't you write a good story first, a good outline, a good story, a good concept, and then you can pick and choose what you can add to it to actually make a good message, right? But don't be preachy about it. That's all. Don't be cheesy. All right. And so that's kind of my rant for today. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. And again, I'm not trying to preach to anyone myself, but I'm just saying, let's make good movies, guys. Don't worry about the Oscars. We can make our own Oscars. And I hope you guys will join me next time. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. And I'll be back soon with more. Till next time. God bless.